let's get started. Whoop. Welcome to the board meeting, or the work session.
Is Armstrong calling?
Jen's calling in, she's online. All right. My computer is locked up. First up. All right, so where have you decided to go to school for the record?
I'm going to Cal Poly.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So it's been a while since my last report, but we're left with only 32 days until graduation. The high school is pretty busy right now with AP exams for the past 2 weeks and Keystone exams this week and next. So the schedule's been crazy, but the variety show was on May 3rd, and it was a great time, and we were able to raise a total of $3,065 for the ALS Association. And the Desmond Student Achiever Banquet was very successful and on May 5th. And we're looking forward to the senior prom on Saturday night at the Franklin Commons.
Senioritis is okay still?
We're trying.
You're doing great.
All right, next up is the program. Nothing under there, yeah. All right, yep, sorry.
Monthly enrollment report.
It's rebooting, yeah. All right, the monthly enrollment report's there, and then next up is policy.
Okay.
Need to remember. Off again. Policy committee meeting met on May 7th. Jen Armstrong was absent. Samantha and I were both there, as well as various other people. Policy 6 was about meetings. We made 2 additions to this policy. Text was added stating that discussions relating to school safety may be conducted in executive session, and information sessions may be held for the purpose of gathering information and clarifying issues, and these sessions are not required to be open to the public. Of course, they can be. It's board discretion, board president discretion. Deleted from the policy is the requirement that the secretary provide each school director with a copy of the minutes of the last meeting no later than 3 days before the regular meeting, and the order of the business list of what happens in a special meeting. All the changes were advised by legal counsel. Policy 204 is attendance and the administrative guidelines. Minor changes were made to this policy. Under the administrative guideline for excused absences, a paragraph was added to discussing student participation in a musical performance for a national veterans organization or an event or a funeral. Policy 247 is hazing and the administrative guideline. If the board were to read any of the policies in detail, please read over this one before next time. And if you have any comments in the meantime, please email me and we can have a further discussion next time. But changes were made to this policy and the administrative guideline as the new law recently went into effect. Dr. Gafredo stated that the topic is also referenced in the handbooks. And this is also one that I wish that parents would read with their kids because it's directly relevant, and even if it doesn't affect your child, maybe a friend, just to know what the rules are and what the expectations are. I think this is really, really important. Policies 345, 445, and 545. Just so people remember, the 300s, 400s, and 500s are administrative, professional, and classified. They're similar policies, but for different groups of people. These all deal with family medical leaves. What we talked about was the administrative guideline for the policy associated with professional employees. The overview clarifies how extra duty responsibilities, EDRs, and other school activities are handled during the period of time in which an employee is out of work for FMLA leave. Policy 438.1 is compensated professional leaves. This policy governs sabbatical leave. The definitions paragraph gives a clear example of the purpose of professional development leave as it relates to an employee's professional responsibilities as determined by the board. Approved leave is restricted to activities regulated by the regulations of the State Board of Education and by the laws of the Commonwealth. Policy 530 addresses overtime and compensatory time. It states that 40 hours must be worked before an employee is eligible for overtime compensatory time in conjunction with the procedures outlined in the Fair Labor Act. Requirements are outlined for approval of overtime comp time and the time limit in which the extra time must be used. The administrative guide to policy 610, purchase is subject to bids, quotations, and policy 626, federal fiscal compliance. Updates were made to put us within the current bid threshold numbers. This information is updated annually, so you'll be seeing this again next year. Policy 904, I believe we were going to change the title potentially to just public events. Right now it's listed as public attendance at school events. This policy was updated to include the use of electronic smoking devices as in the definition paragraph. And we did discuss the name change with the attorney, and I think we're going with public events. The goal is just to make it easier for people to figure out what we're talking about when they're finding policies. The next meeting, which was scheduled for Tuesday, May 28th, has been canceled. And Dr. Goffredo reported that our attorney suggested that future meetings take place on a quarterly basis since all policies have now been reviewed and revised. The committee would still need to regularly review the policies, but would not need to meet monthly. There also may be some where we just discuss them within the board and not even go to the policy committee meeting if there are things that need to be changed immediately or in response to something that happens legally or in the community. I also just wanted to say on a personal note, I am leaving the board at the end of this election cycle, so I'll be stepping off in November, I think it is, December. And so if it's the will of the board and the president, I would be more than happy to cede the chair of this committee to allow for kind of like a smooth transition. I'm also happy to stay on until December, but my advice would be to potentially shift things around so that you could have someone with experience there, carrying it on with the fresh cycle. So whatever you want to do, I'm happy to step aside and let somebody else. Samantha, did you have anything to add? I know that you had some good things, or are you?
No, I think you covered the meeting well, and I mean, we can talk about the committees. I'd be happy to step up and take that over, but we may want to give an opportunity to others too, so.
Well, first off, I want to congratulate the committee, Dr. Goffredo, and the attorneys for 3 years of long, hard work of
Thank you.
getting all this done, because that was our goal, was to review these in 3 years, and it's taken us 3 years. And I know it's been a lot of work to even accomplish that in 3 years, so well done to all of you.
A lot of trees were killed.
A lot of trees were killed. All for the benefit of our children.
Is there a thought for how frequently we should be doing that as a
Sorry?
board? Is there a thought for how frequently we should be doing that again? Like, when is the next time we think about a full overhaul?
We will continue the process, so at no point in time will any policy be more than 3 years old. Moving forward, however, the process will be much smoother because some of the policies that the policy committee reviewed had last been looked at in 1998. So by maintaining the process in the way in which it's been started, my recommendation is to never allow that situation to happen again, to always refresh. And as we move forward, many of the policies will then be reviewed, no change. And now we're in a much better position.
I mean, the goal, right, is to basically do the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
Every 3 years, we'll be
Every
recycling
year,
through them.
the third year.
Right, it'd just be quicker, hopefully, so.
We did discuss that, I'm sorry, Steph. We did discuss that moving forward because next year, again, the lift will be a whole lot less, that the policy committee will very possibly and efficiently be able to conduct their business by quarterly meetings rather than monthly meetings. So that is a recommendation that I would make to the committee, and I don't believe that will be an issue at all.
There's still a lot of reading to do. That was something that Samantha I had kind of glossed over it, and then she brought me back to reality. If you're compressing 2 or 3 meetings into one meeting, it's a stack with the administrative guidelines and just going through everything. Like, you still have to read it, even if you're not making changes. So, you can think about it and decide what makes the most sense, but.
I agree, we'll have to see how it works out. It makes sense to start quarterly, but yeah, there is we already read a lot for each monthly meeting, But if it's quarterly and we meet, I don't know how many times we meet during the year from September through May, so maybe we meet 6 or 8 times, and if we're reducing it to 4 times, it may not be the end of the world. We can try it.
All right, and then Samantha, if you're willing to take over till
Yep, I'll take
committee
it over
chair and.
with Steph's help for the next few
Yeah,
months,
that's
because
what I mean, yeah.
lot to learn and big shoes to step into. So
Rather
thank you
than-
for all that you've done.
That was the quickest transition. Rather than figure out if anybody else wants to do it, it's easier, I think, at this point to continue with somebody who's already on the committee, and I know you've been helping a lot there too, so thank you.
Let me ask Jen Armstrong if she has any interest.
Oh, I
or-
forget Jen's on the phone, sorry.
Or, I'm assuming no, but I hadn't.
Jen?
That's fine. I think it sounds awesome for Samantha to continue.
Thanks, Jen.
Yep. Thanks,
And again, I'll let you guys decide how often you want to meet. There's no reason for the whole board to worry about that. But you might be right, it may be easier to have monthly or so smaller meetings than a bigger quarterly meeting, but that'll be up to you guys to figure out. And you may not need the lawyers at every meeting either, so. All right, moving on to superintendent update.
Yes, once again, this is just a snippet of the many, many wonderful things that are happening throughout our district. Author Victoria Jameson had a visit with Katie Markley. She's a Newbery Honor Award winner and New York Times best-selling author. She visited Katie Markley and held 2 school assemblies. She also conducted a writing workshop for 5th graders. Mrs. Jameson shared how her love of writing developed and why perseverance is such an important skill to acquire. Katie Markley also celebrated Heritage Night, and it is a beautiful celebration. If you've ever had an opportunity to attend the Heritage Night at Katie Markley, it's a celebration of the school's diversity. More than 21 countries were represented by families, and students hosted a talent and fashion show. On an aside, one of the 2nd graders sang "What a Wonderful World," and I must say it was truly show-stopping.
Yeah, my family was there, these kids getting up there and dancing and singing their hearts out. It's awesome. So
It is amazing.
thanks to the community for participating.
It's beautiful. The middle school and high school participated in the Envirothon. It's Chester County. It's sponsored by the Chester County Conservation District. The middle school and high school have been participating in the environmental competition for over 30 years. It requires extensive studying, researching, and teaching on environmental topics that are not included in the curriculum. Knowledge on the 5 topics areas is built upon from elementary school through high school. Students worked extensively with their coaches, Ara Lester from the middle school and Christina Kleinberg from the high school. This year, 8 of our students from the middle school and 10 students from the high school participated. A lot of work and a lot of dedication and commitment by the students and their advisors. Our biology students had another visit to Pitt. Our honors biology students, along with their teachers, Kathy Chrissy and Christina Kleinberg, had a field trip to the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine on April 7th and 8th. This is part of the ongoing partnership that we've discussed before with researchers and doctors at the Brain Institute at the University of Pittsburgh. The students and teachers worked with professors and scientists in neuroscience labs. Students also met with representatives from the ALS Society to try out the assistive technologies used by ALS patients. And this is just another example of the amazing students that we have within our district. They will be joining us on June 3rd to give us an overview of that partnership and the impact that it's had on the students that have been participating. We have our Great Valley Boys 4x100 team, coached by Nicole Jones. They set a new school record, running the 4x100 in 43.09 seconds. So congratulations to our team, and I'm sure we will be seeing them at a recognition event shortly. Front Porch Trust Breakfast of Champions. The annual Breakfast for Champions was established for public to honor student volunteers from Conestoga and Great Valley High School who have applied for the Front Porch Trust Scholarship. Great Valley had 3 students who were recognized: Alyssa Maldonado, Evan Chang, and Kimberly Yang. So congratulations to those students. The No More Club welcomes speakers. This club does a presentation every year, and they hosted 2 presentations for students this year. No More is committed to ending domestic violence and sexual assault. The high school welcomed First Assistant District Attorney Mike Noon and Assistant District Attorney Alexis Shaw, who discussed a recent case and the legal process they follow when dealing with victims and perpetrators. Also joining this year, and to the right on the picture, is Olympic gymnast Sarah Klein. She is the first known victim of Larry Nassar, who was the former Olympic doctor who sexually assaulted hundreds of women athletes. And she also spoke to our students. I have to say, what an amazing assembly and presentation for our students. It was incredibly powerful, and I believe, Dr. Capitola, as we talked after, it was truly life-changing for many of our students, I believe. The lessons will stay with them for years to come. A DigiGirls event. In early April, several computer science students had an opportunity to go to the Microsoft Technology Center to meet with Microsoft employees for their DigiGirls event. Technology and computer science represent a majority of job growth in STEM fields, and women are drastically underrepresented in the field and in university programs. Our high school students were able to talk to Microsoft employees about how they ended in technology and at Microsoft, as well as participate in activities to encourage young ladies to pursue a career in technology. And I think you just have to look at their faces to see how much they enjoyed that day. St. Gobain Earth Day, Garden Get Down event. Great Valley High School students took part in the St. Gobain Earth Day Garden Get Down event this year. It represents a new partnership between Great Valley High School, Great Valley Community Organization, and the St. Gobain Company. The purpose of the event is to open St. Gobain's doors to the community and educate students on healthy eating, bring awareness to food insecurity, and engage in planting gardens. Our 2 students were highlighted as part of an Excellent Artists, where nearly 500 works of art were created by Chester County High School students. These works were on exhibit to the general public as part of the annual Chester County High School Art Festival and Congressional Art Show. A reception and award ceremony was held on Tuesday, April 23rd, where Great Valley High School students, Jesse Velez and Julia Zulio, each earned the Excellence Award for their submissions. Congratulations to those students. 8 Great Valley High School students participated in Westchester University's 11th Annual Investigation Bee. The Integration Bee is like a spelling bee, except it includes math problems. After several rounds, Great Valley High School students Kevin Guo and Caitlin DePaulio placed first and second respectively, and you can see them holding their signs. Finally, some upcoming events. Friday, Katie Markley Spring Fling and Sugartown Spring Fair on May 18th. As was already shared, the senior prom at the Foundry in Phoenixville. May 20th, preschool graduation. May 23rd is the middle school National Junior Honor Society induction and high school Spring Arts Festival. On May 30th is the high school senior awards assembly. Upcoming concerts, and I need to reiterate, if you're looking for events to truly get yourself into an amazing mindset, please join one of our upcoming concerts and you will see the talent that exists. May 14th, the Spring Choral Concert at the middle school, which will be held at the high school. May 15th, the District Elementary Orchestra Concert at General Wayne. May 16th, Sugartown K-1 Concert. May 21st, the high school band concert. May 22nd, Great Valley String Festival at the high school. May 28th, the high school choral concert. And finally, May 30th, the General Wayne Kindergarten Concert. There is a morning and evening performance. So lots to do and many reasons to celebrate.
All right. Very busy time of the year for everybody.
Absolutely.
All right, facilities up next. Chuck, you want to explain, this is a contract we need to pass?
Yeah, last
Vote
year,
on next week?
last year, this time you awarded the bids for the lawn and landscape maintenance. The low bidder worked for this year and then came to us a month or so ago and wanted a substantial increase above and beyond what the bid had allowed, which we refused. So they have just pulled out of this last week. So we went to the actual number 3 bidder, which is Great Valley Lawn and Landscape. Number 2 was the prior company that we had. We allowed them to bid, but we do not recommend going to them. So they will honor their bid price from last year. They actually received the landscape portion of the bid last year. And they're going to link them together, honoring both of the bid prices and giving us a 3% discount since we'll now have both. So it stays within our bid parameters and within our budget, a little more than we want, but that's what we have to do. We actually do not have time to rebid this year. If you're cutting your own grass, you know why. So it's growing right now, so. Then you have you have building use report, and then you have under transportation, you have a transportation service agreement for Norcross. They are our special contract, the vans, small vehicles. Kraft does most of the big vehicles, a bunch of the small buses, but not the small vans that we need.
Chuck, I have a question on that one. I mean, it makes sense that they have rates in there, but why does the contract say it's for in exchange of $1 and then there's rates later on? I just don't understand what the purpose
Because
of that
they
is legally.
vary, because each of these are so individualized, the rates have to change, because you may have a van taking kids to the Overbrook School for the Blind, and then you may have a van taking kids to a special school that's really close, and the rates are obviously much different. It's a very specialized type busing. It's a little different than our big buses.
It lists the rates, I just didn't understand why there was an exchange
Yeah,
of
we
funds
have,
to sign a contract.
numerous and sundry types of these that range from vehicles, like virtually sedans, to multi-passenger vans.
Why do we have to exchange $1 to make that happen when there's rates in there? I mean, I'm just trying to understand legally why it's set up that way.
I'll have to check with Mike and see. And get
Okay,
back
it
to you.
just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
All right. I understand why we need the vans, though. Thank you.
All righty. Nothing under food service. Down to finance.
Okay. There's only 3 more budget presentations left under the old regime, so brace yourself, 48 slides.
I noticed they got a little more colorful this week.
Well, I had help from our public relations department, so.
38 years later.
Yeah. Numbers are numbers, but what can you do? So we're gonna look a little bit at the budget tonight. Nothing really changed. The variables in the budget are the economy, always a variable. Full day kindergarten, I list that as a variable because we're still not quite sure what will happen with the number of teachers we have budgeted. I'm going to get to that in a second. We're pretty optimistic, but who knows? It's an unknown. Politics, the state budget, while it doesn't seem to be as nasty as it's been in past years, that can change on a dime. There is still some underlying threat of property tax reform, and again, we are not generally opposed to property tax reform. I would invite it. It's just that when there's a proposal for property tax reform put on the floor of the legislature, and you ask them, well, how is this going to be funded? So the business manager guys can look at the numbers. No one ever has an answer. It's, well, we're just getting rid of property taxes. So, okay, that's fine. What's going to happen and how will it work? And really, nobody should vote on anything like that without knowing how it's going to work. So that's that. Special ed, again, these are things that are in there all the time. Benefits are actually not so bad this year, but they could turn on a dime too. So don't want us to forget that. You know, what we have is a great projection right now, but in 6 months, it could look like the prior business manager was an idiot for budgeting that much money. So we'll see. These are the increases for this year, not a large change to salaries and benefits. Special ed, substitute teachers, we have baked in an increase. We've now been caught by all the other schools around us, so our substitute fill rate is still in the 90% range, higher in the low mid 90s, but we used to be as close to 100% as anybody could get, but as all the other schools are seeing. So we need to raise our rate for substitute teachers commensurate so that people want to come here. People like to come here because it's Great Valley, but really they like to come here because it's Great Valley and because we used to pay in the top of the line there. Our numbers for other schools, part of that's for, most of that's for the tech school and the IU. So a little bit of it's for the charter schools, although we kind of ratcheted that back with the kindergarten. Technology has an increase as we've added the 4th grade in there and the two other grades of getting the one-to-one technology. We do have still in from your approval last month, the other financing, the new debt in place of $1 million. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, how that affects things. And the capital reserve fund we increased, that's the contribution that goes to capital reserve projects, the small projects, which will be big projects. We have several large ones. I have them listed at the end of this presentation. I probably will not go through them because we went through them once before. If you have any questions on them, I or Jim or Ken would be glad to answer. So the budget, staffing is about 2/3 of our budget. Debt's about 6% of our budget. Support of other schools, and that's the charter schools, approved private schools, private residential rehab schools, those are special ed type schools, the vocational technical schools, the intermediate unit, it's about 8.9 million. Just so you have some comparison, that line for Coatesville School District is $76 million. So 54 of it is charter schools. And not to belabor that point, the more that board reduces its budget and tries to keep its, the more they encourage flight to charter schools. So you've actually, I think, kind of reversed that a little bit for next year. We'll see. I don't imagine that we'll have the number of kindergarten students at the charter schools next year as we had this year, only because our other grade levels were 2 and 3 kids in a grade level, whereas the kindergartners were 18 or 20. Transportation for us is 5.3 million, just a little less than 5%. Infrastructure, that's a lot of maintenance in the technology and things like that. Operating cost, that's copiers, all the principals, budgets, things like that. And then we have a very, very small budget reserve. So our budget's about 110 million. We have 89.2 million from local sources. So you can see our budget gap's we get to a total revenue of about just under 106 million, which is just about $4 million budget gap. We're projecting to use 3 million of reserves, which leaves us about $1.1 million in a gap after we use the reserves. This is what our reserves look like and are projected for this year. We're having a pretty decent year revenue-wise. I have noticed a little slow up in the transfer taxes. I was a little disappointed in today's April transfer tax receipt, but hopefully that's just catching up to, if they all settled at the end of April, they probably get thrown into May when we get reported to. So this was the reserves used. This 18-19 year, we used the last of the pension reserve. So next year, for 1920, the entire reserve is coming out of general fund. And we be all right. The recommended millage increase is 1.2%. That's down a little bit because we've had some increased new construction in the meantime here, and we've made some adjustments for the state budget and things. Very small for state budget. I don't want you to think we had a lot for there. So it's about that'll fill that $1.1 million gap. Staffing for this year, we really have no changes in secondary, no changes in special ed. And when I say no changes, there could be slight changes in secondary depending on how things fall out. No changes, no proposed new additions in special ed or other. The big changes are elementary. We had three teachers before you did kindergarten. We have about 3 full-day kindergarten teachers in the budget. So it's about 6. That's all already in the budget. These are your class sizes, no big change. So the current millage is 21.295, and the proposal is 21.55. That's down from the last time we talked to you, which was 21.6. The Act 1 index is 2.3. The 5-year financial picture, okay, this picture shows you if you had no tax increase, what would happen to the reserves. And you can see at the very bottom in red, you would quickly run out of money. You'd have money for a couple years, but by 22, 23, you would get into a negative situation. So, and we've baked into here, 2 things are baked into here. One is the $1 million each year. So 2020, the 1920 has the million in, so does the 2021, and so does the 21-22. So in 21-22, you actually have a $3 million line item for additional debt or for new debt at the time. And if you continue that plan, and I'm not saying it has to work exactly that way, but I'm just saying on this theoretical model, you would have $6 million in the bank plus a little bit of accrued interest, couple $100,000, to reduce your borrowing. So if the bond issue was scheduled to be $50 million, you'd only need 44, and you'd have the line item for your mortgage payment there. So there would not be a dramatic increase in 1 year, or the need for special ed or for referendum exceptions or anything, or the need to cut other areas to fund the budget. So this is if you do it this way. The next way is if you did the tax increase this year of 1.2%, and then just next year, if you just did the act and the other 4 years out, we put in the, assuming that an Act 1 increase was done for each year, which we modeled at 2.3%. In the past, we were using the projected model by for the Harrisburg independent financial office, who projected we would be at 2.6 or 2.8 this year and in the future, and obviously they were a little bit high, so we depressed it to the current one, not to show. So you can see the bottom. I always go right to the bottom line, the reserves. You would chew into a little bit of reserves early, but after you have that debt in place, you see it levels itself out then. This is a chart. It's kind of my new favorite chart. We don't have the CPI increase yet. We add that when the government establishes the Social Security increase. But anyway, it shows what the Act 1 index is, what the Great Valley millage increase has been, and what the consumer price index, or the increase that Social Security annuitant has received over the past, since Act 1 has been in place. So the board has pretty much gone just about what Social Security has increased. Some years we were higher, some years we were lower than the Social Security increase. Last year we were lower. The year before we were lower. 16-17 and 15-16, when the Social Security increase was virtually nil, obviously we were higher. Budget calendar, you approved the budget on January 22nd. So you did not need to do the February 11th one. You approved you approved the resolution not to raise taxes over the index on January 22nd. You approved the preliminary budget on April 22nd. We're looking at this now. On the 20th, we will the budget's actually been available for inspection since the last meeting. Depending on anything for tonight, we will put up a revised one. By May 23rd, Linda and I have to, which means Linda has to advertise in the newspaper 10 days before adoption, and we will adopt the budget on you will adopt the budget on June 3rd. It has to be done before June 30th. You can do it anytime before that. We propose June 3rd. It does give our taxpayers, we get the bills out within a week, probably the week of the 10th. They will go out early. That way, anyone that wants to file or wants to pay with the installment plan has plenty of time to get ready for the July 15th first installment. I'm going to really fly through this capital budget. This is virtually the same thing as last year, except for the numbers for our capital budget. Talks about budget basics, what an operating budget is versus a capital budget. Sometimes there's some confusion, so I want to kind of keep this in front of you, not because you need to know it again, because we shared this with you last week or last year, but it's always good to have so you can cite it if you ever get somebody to kind of challenge you on why you're doing the capital this way or why you're doing the operating this way. And talks about we talk about integrating the capital and operating budgets and things like that. The impacts of capital needs, and you're going to get really engrossed into capital needs as the feasibility study gets more and more in line here, and they continue to work. They're in the buildings virtually every week, gathering data for us. And this talks about the budgeting process and how you fund it. Sometimes you pay as you go, sometimes you do long-term debt, performance contracts, grants, capital reserves. We've been using the capital reserves mainly, but sometimes you have to pay as you go if something comes up. And that's why it's always good to have a little bit of a cushion in that fund so that you can deal with unexpected facility pleasures, like a hole out in front of the high school a couple of years ago.
No, it never happens.
Never happens. So this is the long-range capital plan. You saw this in February. So just to keep it in front of you, we did move technology to general fund this year. We moved activities to general fund in 2017 for 17-18 year. You see that the maintenance budget for next year is a little over 4 million, and there's some big things in there, and we can. I didn't include them in this presentation. They are in the February one. If you want to see it, I could probably pull it forward for you for next week, just so you could have it. Some of the big things for this year are we did do the sonar testing of the football field. We were waiting to see the results of that. We got the sonar pictures, which mean nothing to me. It's like when my kids were having their ultrasound done, it was just a blob then. Now the ultrasounds are like life touch pictures. So mine was like, yeah, you see, yeah, no, it's nothing. So I couldn't tell what was going on with so we're waiting for the experts to tell us what they wrote little things on it. So we're hopeful if the news is good, we're going to fix it right after graduation and be done. That way the turf fields can be done next summer right after graduation. If the news is bad, we'll have to delay it and you'll have to fix them next summer, 2020, after graduation. Most likely push everything off the football field through the fall to somewhere else, because there's almost no way we could do a major sinkhole thing and be done before school starts, or before when they want to use it, which is like August 15th. So that's what our hope is. Our hope is to do it. If the fields are ready, a turf replacement is virtually replacing the carpet in your house. If the fields are not, if we don't need anything underground done. So we'll wait till graduation's over because we want it to still look good. Same with next year. We'll wait till graduation's over. Want it to look good. We're going with a pink track this time. No, just kidding. But
You don't get a vote in 30 days, so.
so that's this. Now this plan, I think we told you in February, will most likely change based on what Schrader brings us for long-range, large facility plans and long-range maintenance plans. So as we look in there, we've been funding the plan at about $3.9 to $4.2 million a year. It's not quite the entire amount of the debt you reduced this year, but it's close. We took a couple $100,000 and put it back into the general fund, or reduced the general fund for it, but this stays the way it is. But this is what the general, or the capital reserve fund reserve chart looks like. It gets a little low in 22, 23. So I'm hoping you'll think about fixing that in the next couple of years. And probably with the way things are gonna come, if you're gonna do a big renovation project someplace, it will virtually take all of the other projects at that building off. So you'll be moving them from one pot to another. So a bond issue would deal with it instead of this. And hopefully that, because you don't want this ski slope to end at the bottom. You want to kind of have it go up a little bit and have, you like to have rainy day money because it's been raining. So, questions?
Yes. Oh, you want to go? All right. So Chuck, I want to go back to the new debt funding money that we've built in to the budget. I am truly supportive, and we've had multiple conversations as a board about that. So I believe that the board is completely on board. But from a true transparency position, I really would like to take a moment to be very specific and explain exactly what our decision to bake that $1 million a year in this year and have it compound, what that means this year for budget time. So if I could just roll it out for you, and then you just let me know whether I'm correct or not correct, and then our stakeholders will have a perfect understanding. That's what I'm looking for, just for them to have a perfect understanding. So I'm really supportive, and I'm grateful that we live in a community where our stakeholders want us to do good business, not just to do what's in the best interest of our children, but to also always be mindful and do good business. And we've all benefited by this board's ability to do that. So right now we're looking at a 1.2% tax increase for this year. And $1 million is baked into the budget and will be covered by that 1.2%. So effectively, we probably could close our budget gap if we didn't bake that money in with virtually very little increase. But because we're electing to do good business and to put that money in there, we're looking at basically a 1.2%. I just don't want there to be any tears when we vote on this budget, that any constituent comes to us and says, I didn't understand completely what this budget was comprised of. Now, I know that's not because we don't do a good job explaining it, because we certainly do, but I just want to make sure that everybody has the right information and they understand what this budget means. So am I giving this back to you correctly, that the 1.2% tax increase effectively will be covering the new debt funding money that we are adding to be able to put that money in there so that we actually spend less when we go out for bonds to build our building and do these major projects.
Yes, for every $1 million you put in, if you were going to be borrowing in 2 years, for every $1 million you put in this year, it saves you $2 million next year. If you compound that, that's why it compounds to $6 million, because next year you'll save $2 million, which will save you more, and the next year you'll save $3 million, which you'll have 6, which will it will raise your millage, it will. And, if we were in any other economic environment, we would not be recommending this. For the long-term future of the district, the most sense for, and really you would be the envy of most school boards in the area for being able to do this. I mean, a zero tax increase is great. That would be awesome. But when that you're going to be spending upwards of $50 to $70 million within 3 or 5 years, and you have the ability to set a little bit aside so that instead of spending $50 million in 3 years, you're spending 44. And instead of your debt being X, it's X minus whatever the debt is on $6 million extra dollars. So you've put that in place, and we've shared that, and we have that available to anybody. The RBC presentations and our presentation certainly from last month, which showed that whatever level you did, it's you can go up. It's about 0.6% for every $500,000 you do. If you want to do 500,000 less, you can go to 0.6%. If you want to do 500,000 more, it's going to be 1.8% tax increase. If you want to do where it is now, it's about 1.1 or 1.2%. I mean, if we eliminated $1 million from the budget, we'd still be a little bit over, but that's de minimis in the realm of our budget. So.
Thank you. Great explanation.
And just a quick follow-up to that. This is a common practice for most school districts that are going to go down this path of expecting to need some type of, as we say, 50 to whatever it is, $1 million of expenditures in the next few years because of our growth.
Yeah, we did this back in the mid-90s also, something very similar to this. Actually, we did a little differently. We actually put some debt in place before we needed it. And for lack of a better financial term, we churned the money, kept the investment proceeds, repaid the loans, bought another loan. So by the time we were ready to do our first borrowing, we had upwards of $10 million in the bank that almost covered, the bulk of, a little less than half of the middle school project, the new middle school project. And we continued to do that. I mean, it was perfectly legal. I wish I had a better term than churn. I know those financial guys do not like the word churn. But, you have to stay inside the Internal Revenue Service requirements for arbitrage, and we did. There's, again, the people that evade taxes like Al Capone go to jail. The people that avoid them are smart. So we were avoiding the arbitrage issue, and we did it. So it would be good, and we, I can document that we saved, many millions of dollars the first time, and we had a larger scales of projects to do at the time. Our hope for this, and I don't know what they're going to come up with, I can only guess because of my years of experience here, is you're going to have to do some kind of building, whether it's an addition or a building or something, and probably a handful of what you will consider major renovations in the realm of what we did 20 years ago. They're probably minor renovations, but they're multi-million-dollar renovations nonetheless. So, because our buildings, I just can't believe our buildings are this old. It seems like we just opened up that middle school.
So I wanted to ask about the amount. I understand the reasoning for the $1 million, and I'm very supportive of that. I'm glad we're doing that, and I know we're putting money away for building that we're inevitably going to have to do. and we're putting $1 million away this year and then, or next year, and then potentially in the following years, assuming we can still do it, we don't have some other budget challenge that comes up and that we have to spend the money on something else. For that reason, I'm curious as to what it would look like were we to put more away this coming year. I know when they gave us the scenarios, they talked about 1.5 or 2, or let's say it was 1.5 million and not 1. You just said 0.6% more roughly, so that would bring the increase up from 1.2% to 1.8%. What would that look like for the average taxpayer? What does 1.2% mean in their pocket of an average taxpayer, and what does 1.8% mean?
I'll have to do, I don't have a slide for that right now, but the one, the average taxpayer pays in the neighborhood of $4,000 in taxes, so 1% is $40.
$40, so
2% would
1.8%.
be 80.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it's
so
probably
it's a
like
little
another
less.
$30 if we're going from 1.2% to
Yeah,
1.8%.
I hate to kind of
Yeah.
grab at that number, but I'll get you that for next week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm supportive of 1 million, but I'm also supportive of more, and not crazy more, maybe 1.5, because we don't know what the future years hold. We don't know for sure that we can put $1 million away next year and the year after. And we don't want to go above the Act 1 index in future years. I don't think we do if we don't have to. So with this year, with our increase being low, I agree that's great for our homeowners, but if we can put a little bit more in, save the money in the future, save having to potentially do a higher increase later, I would be supportive of that. I know we've, toyed with that a little bit at past meetings, but I would like to get more information on that and have the whole board see it. And obviously, everyone will state their own opinion and vote the way they want, but I would like to see up to 1.5. I mean, I don't know what 2 would look like. It seems like it's not that big of an increase, that still just a little bit of extra precaution.
I'd also just like to say that I'd like to see those numbers as well. Thanks.
Didn't we already do this? We got the,
Not down to the taxpayer level like
oh,
this.
got you, okay. But we did talk about 1 million versus 2 million versus
Yeah.
3 million, right?
last
I mean, this is
slide.
the chart of,
there.
this is the chart of the 3 options we kind of laid out to you. And quite frankly, I just made up this number. I mean, I focused in on a number which I tried to be about half, I tried to come in at where I thought we could be about half of the index. So you would still be able to feel good about the budget, so to speak, but also feel good about, putting some money toward this big debt that you're going to have. So, if a $50 million bond issue costs $3 million a year in debt, and I'd have to go back to Mike and Allison to get that. Certainly a $44 million bond issue is going to cost less than $3 million. Plus, you would already have that money in place in your budgets, and it might be less. I think we showed a scenario where it went from 3 million down to 2.7 million. So the year you actually borrow, you might have a little bit left. And that's assuming, and really they're very raw numbers. We had asked Schrader, like, what's a typical building? Not a high school, not a middle school, not something a little bigger than elementary school. In that, a large elementary school, kind of intermediate school, what would that cost? And they threw a number out at us of like $45–50 million. And that's where we came up with that number, so we didn't make that up. But, so.
It is coming back to me. Somebody throw something at me if I'm wrong, but we did have this dialogue. So when 80% of our tax base have either no children in schools or are senior citizens, I have no problem in a year when we could effectively have a 0% tax increase. I have no problem under these scenarios going to the constituency and saying, guys, we really need to do this, it's good business, and it's going to come in at 1.2% when Act 1 is over 2%. I really have a problem when we can, this community comes out when we say to them, we need you to pay to fund teaching and learning. I have no problem doing that any year, no matter what it costs. And the community, we're really fortunate, they come forward and they do it. But on a year when we could do it with a 0, to go out to the community and say, you know what, we want to put more than $1 million away. Now we want you to pay up to Act One index when we really could be giving you zero. I think that was the conversation we actually had last month when we had the conversation. That's why we instructed Chuck to build in $1 million. So are we just gonna keep, are we chewing on this now? We're asking for info. I'm just trying to figure out where are we?
Well, we asked for different options. Those are the options. We talked about the different options. We've asked, I mean, nothing's in concrete until we vote.
Correct.
June, whatever it is, 3rd. So until that happens, I mean, we can continue to debate it or change our minds or whatever.
And I remember talking about it, asking Chuck to build $1 million in for the sake of moving the budget
Right.
forward, but also acknowledging that we had time to
Look at
rethink
the
that
options.
figure.
Right, and as we get more information, including the household income, or household impact, I mean,
And
it's
I
just
think
more
we all as a
information.
board agreed, we wanted to do something. Perhaps we didn't want to go all the way up to Act One, but that we might want to dust off the conversation about how far we would want to go. And I think one of the reasons I'm interested in having this conversation is because based on the articulation you two just shared, the community is going to have to pay this money one way or the other. So the question is, what is the most business smart way to get the community to pay it? And I'm all for having a conversation about whether or not more than $1 million, less than $2.5 million, somewhere, let's have that conversation and decide what is the smartest business thing to do to prevent more pain later than we have to. Is that the right way to, I mean, we're pay now or pay later, save for your retirement now or pay later. We're putting money aside for an expense that we know is coming, one way or the other.
More to come between now and June 3rd.
Do we need to,
Do we want the impact for next week?
do we need to be
Yeah, I think
specific
he's
about
gonna
what we
get us
want and
through.
when
Yes.
we'll talk about it?
Taxpayer impact for next week, and again, nothing will be, can be decided until June 3rd when we, I mean, that's just the final number, whether or not we add more to our savings or less. On June 3rd, we can make that decision. It's not like we're totally throwing his budget up in the air and telling him we don't like it, so.
Just so you know, I did not pull the 1 million out of the air. I had some strategic thoughts behind the million, and it's kind of personal. Well, number one, I'll be on a fixed income. Linda likes to hear me say that. No, actually, number one is, if you notice in the, we have the lowest effective tax rate in the county. However, Westchester's millage is lower than ours by a tad. So they are scheduled to go up by the Act One index. If we go up by less than 1.5%, we will be less than them in millage, and we have no earned income tax, and they have an earned income tax. It was just
We know you're retiring, but we're
trying to
gonna do
win
what's
the
right for
Ameri-
Great Valley, not to keep us at the
trying to
lowest.
get us to the front again.
Well, there is value to being the lowest tax millage in the county.
Well, and no one understands.
Not only just bragging rights, but there is value.
Well, and no one understands the fact that we don't have an earned income tax because our townships have kind of taken the stance of, well, we'll just take everything the school never really had a chance, never took back in the day when we used to be able to take it, so.
Yeah, but we could go after that money if we
You
wanted
could
to.
if you got a referendum
I
passed by
understand.
the voters, which
I
would be
understand.
good luck.
Oh, I'm just saying, it is doable, it's not necessarily probable. But the bottom line is, the Act One index would put us at about $2 million of. Tad under, just to keep that in mind, so. So it's not, 2.5 million isn't an option, it's tad under 2 million is the max, so.
And 1.5 doesn't bring us up to the Act One index, it brings us up to 1.8 roughly.
No, yeah, but I'm saying $2 million puts us just, just under $2 million puts us,
much right at it.
right.
I could put 2 million in and we would stay.
But we would be at the index.
Right, that's my point.
I mean, I just want to make sure everybody understands that 2 million's about the cap of
Yeah.
as high as we could go if you wanted to go higher.
But
We'll
for
have the-
community listening that maybe don't always tune in, we are not talking about an expanding budget so much as an expense that we know is coming and trying to finance that expense as proactively and as far in advance as possible. This is not about expanding programming and thinking it's okay to just go ahead and raise taxes, like, this is an expense we know that's coming.
Well, it's just like anything, when you go to buy a house, right? It's like, how much do you want to save and put down, right? Some people believe 5% is enough, some people believe 10, some people believe 0, et cetera, right? So it's just, we as a body of 9 have to decide what we think is the
How
proper
much do we want to
amount.
mortgage later?
Exactly.
Yeah, and as Chuck
Exactly.
showed us, it would compound over time, so
Sure.
the more we can put, just like in your own bank, right? But more, because it's bigger amounts, yes.
All right,
And we can get Chip and Joanna Gaines here to flip our house.
Put shiplap everywhere.
Yes.
all right.
Thank you for that. It was good information. Thank you.
You have the marketplace, the Chester County Intermediate Unit Marketplace contract there for your review. We are not proposing any new programs. We're just, basically what you'll see is what we definitely participate in is checked off. And the programs we might participate in, we put might participate in because we might participate. You will need to elect a treasurer next month. I'm assuming because of Stephanie's departure a little bit after me, she'll need to be replaced. Or you could be the treasurer for 6 months, but. You will need to elect the secretary, though, because my term goes to 2021, so you'll have to fill my unexpired. The secretary technically is an election. It's not an appointment, it's an election. But so we've put in there to, you can replace me with Chuck 2.0.
We can never replace you.
We have the
We
solicitor
can churn
reappointment.
you,
We'll-
to use your word. We can churn you, to use your word.
Okay. I'm tired. You have Whistler Pearlstein on there as a solicitor reappointment. I will have a letter from them. They were supposed to have me one today, but they had some technical issues at their office, so I apologize for that. In May, we approved the depositories. That's all the banks were allowed to use for next year. You have the auditor's contract there for the next couple of years. We did get the student athletic insurance, which had no increase, is that right, Linda? Right. And for next year, and we also had it was also no increase for the accidental, the optional insurance we offer to the students. So normally we put that on in June, but we got it early, so we got it on in May.
Hey Chuck, just a question. So from what I understand, the athletic insurance is insurance that the school district pays because we have athletic programs.
Yeah, it
And the
covers-
accident insurance is just a bid, like almost like the photographers, it's just an outside company that comes and offers.
It's generally the same company. It's a rider on the same company, and they offer either 24-hour or school day coverage. So if you had very poor insurance and you're worried about quite frankly, if your child breaks their arm off of one of our pieces of playground equipment, it's your responsibility to fix it, not ours. So if you don't have very good insurance, or if you have a high deductible, you can buy this, and it's basically a $100 deductible, so to speak, and then it works in conjunction with your insurance. So if yours doesn't pay, it will pay up to your insurance. Same with athletic insurance. Athletic insurance, though, we cover the kids right away.
But the athletic insurance looks like it's insurance that we take out as a district, whereas the other is an optional insurance, right? Just
Right.
trying to understand the difference.
Yes. And we will buy the student accident insurance for certain students who can't afford insurance or cannot show enough insurance to go on some of our trips like Henlopen and the overnight trips. We insist that they have insurance, so it's a very kind of inexpensive insurance policy for you, so to speak, to purchase for $24 or whatever it is to buy them the insurance for those kind of trips. We have awarding of bids for student planners there.
I had a question on that real quick.
Sure.
Just kind of a dumb question, but why are there only 2 elementary schools listed? Like, do General Wayne and Charlestown get planners or not use
They
them?
do, but they opted to stay with the company they were staying with before because the pricing was similar.
Still commonly used in the middle and high school, because I've seen in the schools, the kids just take pictures of the stuff on the boards that the teachers post. I mean, I know it's not that much money, but are they
I'm
being
gonna defer-
used?
I would defer to,
Using them great,
They're
but
mostly
Dr.
more commonly
Pavlovinsky
used at
or
the elementary
Capitola?
school.
but we're still buying them for the high school, right?
They,
So-
because they're available, but not necessarily given to all.
I will say my 2 elementary school kids use them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering for the upper, yeah.
you're gonna have them inside your glasses and, look. As part of our, the awarding of bid for our wireless access point replacement and additions, this is part of our E-rate funding for this year. Is there too. Frontline is our, one of our personnel programs to renewal. Dude Solutions is our maintenance programs. They do most of our preventative maintenance, our scheduling and things like that of the programs. And then you have a few special ed agreements there for placements or schools. The Mazzoni Center, we've done that before. The superintendent can explain if you need to.
That's a professional development opportunity for our staff. Really focuses in on gender identity and training our staff to be prepared to handle that.
I saw that, and the Mazzoni Center is very well known, so I'm glad we're working with them. Is that something that is it an opportunity that's optional, or is it certain grade levels or certain kinds of teachers based on whatever subject they're teaching? Get
We've-
that? How does that work?
We've had an overview that has been provided previously, but now we're moving more toward targeted support for identified populations. So, and it is not optional.
Couple other professional development.
The next professional development is the Prepare training, and that is our crisis response. And that, again, will be offered to targeted populations. We are building in, and a special thank you to Dr. Wexler, who's been partnering to bring the training here and develop an ability to train the trainer program, so then our staff can turn around the training for others. It's also been opened to folks outside of our district to attend here and receive that training. The professional training agreements for secondary math, that Dr. Beck has been working on building those partnerships. And again, the goal is to work with our staff and have our staff feel confident in implementing new programs in mathematics. The next trainings for professional development training agreements, and you'll see there are 2 here, secondary teachers in supporting our ELL students, our English language students, and the Moses Educational Consulting for elementary teachers on supporting the English language students. Then we have a donation to the high school, and that's from, you can see that donation there, a rather large donation,
It's the third year we've gotten
Veltec.
$25,000 to $30,000 from this company.
Is it targeted for something specific, or they
It's
just?
targeted for, does a little bit to the Desmond Project, I don't think 5,000, and then there's some to football, some to girls' basketball. They have a list, they target the stuff we,
It is truly amazing, their generosity, and it's been yearly.
yeah, the gentleman that runs that company, he's a former NFL player. His kids went to school there. When I say NFL, like, huh? He was on an NFL team. He had a cup of coffee there, so. But still, if you can get that level. So monthly reports there, that's all I got.
All right, nothing under other items. Anybody from the public, or no, excuse me, real fast here. Any other committee reports?
I would just like to say that the CCIU, we are still interviewing to replace the executive director. We should have a decision within the next month. We're also in budget cycle. I am really concerned about the marketplace. And I'm also, I want to share this under other reports. I'm really concerned at the lack of pushback from the CCIU board on the budgets. I know Great Valley has had difficulty. We are all the member districts in this county have a partnership with the CCIU. I don't understand why any of us are ever in a position where we need to go out to bid for services that the CCIU provides. Great Valley has had to do it. Multiple other school districts in this county have had to do it. So I think that this year, my goal as a CCIU board member is to really have those difficult conversations in the public boardroom on this board so that we can see if we can better serve our member districts, Great Valley as well as the other 11, and really improve those partnerships. So I just wanted everyone to know that that's going on. And we have to get aggressive. There are school districts in this county that cannot afford marketplace offerings. And to me, when the purpose of the CCIU is to serve the district, the member districts, and we can't do that in that organization, that's really concerning to me. So I'm going to work hard on that this year. That's it.
All right. Any other committee reports, board comments? All right, the draft agenda is there for next week. There's a whole lot of overnight trips for next year there for approval. It is the season to get those done. So look over them, and if you got any questions, bring them up next week. All
Can I
right.
just say one quick thing?
Yep.
There's a primary election. It's on Tuesday, May 21st. Please vote. Your votes matter. Primary is actually pretty important. So thank you.
Vote early and often.
Early and often, yep. All right. Where am I missing here? Oh, sorry, yep. All right, at this point, I'll open the microphone up for any public comments. If you have any comments, you want to come to the podium, state your name and residency, please do so. All right, seeing none. Board met in executive session beforehand to discuss some personnel and legal issues. Thank you very much for coming and have a good evening.